The movie begins with a family of owls playing in their nest in the forest while their father, Noctis, brings in food and settles them in for the night. One of the two brothers, Soren, is obsessed with the stories of the Guardians of Gahul, who were brave mighty warriors that fought against evil, saving the owl kingdoms. His elder brother Clud thinks Soren is a little over his head with these stories. When the baby sister, Eglantine, questions if Metalbeak actually exists, Soren reminds her of his favorite hero, the lies of Kale, who disfigured the evil leader's face in the Battle of the Ice Claws, and since he hides his face behind a mask, his name is the Metalbeak. Clud cuts them off, complaining about the repetitive stories, as he does not care about the legends. Noctis tells the kids to sleep as they have a big milestone coming ahead, the branching. Next, Noctis takes Clud and Soren for their branching lesson. Clud is eager to impress his dad, and ignores the lesson to prove to his dad that he is better, but Soren seems natural at it, leaving Clud jealous. When the parents leave for hunting, they ask Clud and Soren to head to the hollow. Soren asks Clud to go branching again, but he refuses. Soren knows how to get his brother to go, so he suggests playing the Battle of the Ice Claws, resulting in both brothers leaving for branching. While Soren is trying to help Clud with his flight, Clud pushes him and both them fall to the forest floor, much to their horror. They try to make their way up to the branch, but it is too far away. When a Tasmanian devil attacks them, Soren protects Clud from becoming its prey, who hides when Soren is in trouble. This is where two long-eared owls scare away the rodent and grab them, flying away from their tree. As it happens, the kidnapper owls are Jut and Jat, who work for the Sintigolius Academy for Orphaned Owls. Clud tries to break free, but Jut retrieves him. They are joined by other owls with snatched owlets in their talons. Soren notices the tiny elf owl Gylfi, who makes acquaintance with him while her captor Grimble flies closer to Jat and Jut. When they reach the academy, the big owls tell them that this is their new home as their family is abandoned. Naira, the general of the academy and mate to High Tyto, appears and explains that the owls will be divided into two groups, Pickers and Tyto. Pickers have to find flecks of magnetic stuff that are being harvested to make a secret weapon that will help the Metalbeak have an advantage over his enemies, the Guardians. Gylfi and Soren call out Naira, so she sends them to be Pickers. Soren asks for Clud, but he ignores him, making the queen happy. The Pickers are gathered and made to rest under the bright moon, which brainwashes them into an almost hypnotic state which is called moon blinking. Gylfi warns Soren that they must not sleep in order to avoid being moon blinked. In the morning, all the poor owls are blank and zombie-like. They are ordered to go to the Pelletorium, where they are given the task to dissect pellets in order to find magnetic flecks, which had been eaten by the prey before being consumed by the owls. Soren and Gylfi pretend to blend in, walking like their fellows to avoid getting caught. The guard picks up Soren to take a magnetic fleck to a nearby bucket of flecks, and while Soren fake walks like the rest of his brainwashed fellows to the bucket, he realizes the fleck has a weird effect on his body. By the bucket, he finds a bat who seems unaffected by the magnetism of the fleck. Once he retrieves the fleck from Soren, he signals a screech and a larger bat appears, taking the bucket of magnetic flecks to a larger container surrounded by some blue energy. As it happens, the collective magnetic field generated by the flecks is harmful to the owls as it makes them unable to fly. This is the secret weapon they are building to take over the owl kingdoms. Metalbeak meets a visitor owl who is assigned the task of luring the Guardians into the trap once the weapon is ready. In return, Metalbeak promises him control over Western kingdoms and the Tree of Gahul. Next, we see that Grimble has been noticing that Soren and Gylfi are different from the others. He takes them away, and once they are in a safe spot, he reveals to them that he is going to help them to learn how to fly. He hates the academy and had promised himself a long time ago that if any smart owlets came to the academy, he will help them get away. He teaches Gylfi and Soren to fly. Meanwhile, Naira trains the Tytos. Clud seems to have found a sense of belonging, and he proves his mettle by winning the hunt race, employing dirty tactics to win. Naira is impressed and she asks him to persuade Soren to join the Tytos. Once Naira finds out Grimble has been going against them, she gets to his place with her disciples. Grimble urges Soren and Gylfi to fly away to tell the Guardians, while he stays back and fights. Soren asks Clud to join him, but Clud has found his purpose and he decides to stay by the queen. Grimble engages in a fight with the queen but is eventually overpowered and eliminated. Naira and her guards follow Soren and Gylfi, who are able to escape from the academy through a crack between two boulders. It takes them a while to realize that in the pursuit, they have acquired a new talent. They finally know how to fly. The pair intends to cross the Sea of Hulamir to get to the Guardians. Soren offers to hunt some food for Gylfi, but in doing so, he comes across a burrowing owl named Digger. They ask him for a place to rest, and he takes them to his hollow, where they are joined by another owl named Twilight, who brings a rather angry Mrs. P as his dinner. Soren is overjoyed to see her again and introduces her to his new friends. When he tells her that he needs to get to the Guardians because Clud is still at the academy, Twilight starts singing a song, despite Digger's protests. Soren, Gylfi, and Mrs. P decide to leave for the Sea of Hulamir. Twilight and Digger tag along because they do not want to lose their new company. Meanwhile, Naira is quite impressed by Clud, who showed his loyalty to the academy, even even though he had the chance to run away. He even brings Eglantine to her to turn her into a future Tide Owl. Nyra takes her tested soldiers to Metalbeak, who finds Clud to be promising. Metalbeak speaks to his army about taking back the reign over Owl Kingdoms from the Guardians. Poor Eglantine wants to go home, but Clud tricks her into being moon-blinked. Next, we see Soren, Gylfie, Digger, and Twilight on their journey to the sea, who are attacked by a flock of crows. They snatch Twilight's loot, which was harboring Mrs. P, so the band teams up to rescue her, chasing the crows away. In doing so, they realize they have reached the Shrine of the Guardians at the shore of the Sea of Hulomer, which is guarded by the Echidna, as Soren recollects from his father's stories. The predictive Echidna tells each one their role: Soren the leader, Gylf the navigator, Twilight the warrior, Digger the faithful tracker, and Mrs. P the heart of the band. He advises them to stay between the Eye of the Whales and the Eye of the Glocks, following the stars that will lead them to the Island of the Guardians. The band departs for the Tree of Gahul. On their way, they are met with a blizzard which renders Digger unable to fly because his wings freeze. Soren dashes to save Digger as he plummets toward the raging sea, but to his surprise, he sees Digger being saved by a majestic white owl. His companion signals him to fly with them, and soon they take the band to the Tree of Gahul. Soren is awestruck as he soaks in the glory of Gahul. All of his life, he believed in the legend of the Guardians like no other, and here he is, witnessing them with his very own eyes. As it turns out, the owls that rescued them were the king and queen of the Guardians, named Boron and Baron. When Soren narrates his entire story, from the kidnapping to reaching Gahul, in front of the entire council, Alomer brushes it off as a fabricated story, but Ezzelrib speaks in favor of Soren. Boron the king orders Alomer to investigate the matter with his scouts urgently. Meanwhile, Ochalissa, a teacher, briefs them about the various skills or chaws that the owls acquire at the Tree of Gahul, and the training of the band begins. One day, Soren finds the book entailing the Battle of the Ice Claws, and Ezzelrib finds him. He takes the band to learn how to fly the real way and discovers that Soren has a natural instinct as he braves through the torrents pouring down on them. Back at Ezzelrib's hollow, Soren discovers that he is actually Lies of Kale. He tells Soren that battles are not always heroic, but you just have to do the right thing and follow your gizzard. The scouts and Alomer get to Egolia's academy and verify Soren's truth. Alomer instructs his 2 scouts to incapacitate the guards while he saves 2 moon-blinked owls. However, it turns out to be a trap. Alomer barely escapes with the owlets, one of them being Eglantine. Everyone gathers around as Almir suggests that it is time to declare war to protect the kingdoms. The Guardians depart for battle, leaving behind a reluctant Soren who wanted to join Lies so badly, but he instructs him to tend to his sister. When Eglantine comes around, she reveals that Clud did this to her and gave her to Alomer to bring her back. This is when reality hits and Soren realizes that Alomer is a traitor who is working in unison with the evil Pure Ones and has led the Guardians into a trap. We also learn that Alomer was the secret visitor who was promised the tree in control over the Western Kingdom by Metalbeak early in the movie. Soren sets out with Gylfie, Digger, and Twilight to warn the Guardians. However, the Guardians had already reached St. Egolias by then. By the time they realize they have been deceived into a trap by Alomer, it is too late as the bats unleash the magnetic blue energy, incapacitating the Guardians, and they fall to the ground, unable to fly. Metalbeak orders the bats to eliminate the Guardians, and he proceeds to double-cross Alomer as he never intended to give him control over Gahul and the Western Kingdom, as there can only be one king. Next, we see Twilight, Gylfie, and Digger fighting off the bats sent by Metalbeak, while Soren heads to the forest to collect fire to disable the trap of the magnetic flex. In doing so, he sets the Guardians free and a battle between the Guardians and the Pure Ones ensues. Lies of Kale fights the Metalbeak and is almost onto him, but Nyra intervenes. Soren is attacked by Clud, who is blinded by his jealousy and wants the Pure Ones to prevail. Despite trying to talk him out of it, Clud keeps making advances on Soren, which results in both falling into the forest fire. Soren tries to save Clud, but he falls into the raging flames after breaking his wing. Soren rushes to Lies' side and attacks the Metalbeak with a torched branch just before he was about to eliminate Lies, and ends up eliminating the Metalbeak. Nyra orders the Pure Ones to fall back and they escape. Lies appreciates Soren for his bravery, and all the Guardians head back to the Tree of Gahul, rescuing the moon-blinked owls and injured warriors of the battle. Soren is greeted by his proud parents and a very enthusiastic Eglantine. In the end, the entire kingdom of owls celebrates as Soren, Gylfie, Twilight, and Digger are recognized as the youngest Guardians of Gahul. The movie ends with Soren and his band training the little owls with stories of battles and values, because one day, Nyra will be back for vengeance, and when she does, the Guardians will uphold their oath to protect the kingdoms, as always.